This is a story about entitlement. It's about how we take things for granted and about the impermanence of beautiful things and beautiful places that we assume will always be there. As landscape photographers, it's easy to allow ourselves to believe that powerful places of rock and stone are somehow impervious to the ravages of time. But don't be fooled, my friends, for permanence is merely a facade. We've come to Jack Point right here in our very own hometown of Nanaimo, and the plan is to get into those sea caves that you might just be able to see in the background there. So I've either timed this brilliantly or really badly because the tide is creeping in, and I've been in there before when it was high tide. I got in, but I almost had to swim out, so I really hope we can get in and get our shots and not get soaked.
I think I have a better chance of swimming out.
Why is that?
Your cardio might just be bad.
I've only got to swim 80 feet. Oh. Can you believe the cheeky smack talk from Cayden already? Unbelievable. Anyway, I didn't need to scout for long as I knew exactly where I needed to be for my ideal shot. So this is what we've come here for. Jack Point is all about these gorgeous sandstone rocks, and the water creates, and probably the wind creates, these amazing sea caves. But I love these patterns that you see, and you'll see these closer towards the water's edge. It's so interesting and fascinating to look at these bizarre shapes, and they'll make some really interesting foreground, especially for a wide angle lens. So we're hoping that the clouds light up and give us some nice light. I think we got a bit lucky with the tide because it seems to have slowed a little bit. It's not getting much higher. Fingers crossed that we get that light, and I'll get inside one of these caves and try and fill the frame with these amazing shapes and hopefully catch some nice light. Ooh, look at this boy's nose. Having the physique of an asthmatic silverback gorilla does have its benefits, but at this point I'm almost asphyxiating myself simply by holding a prolonged crouch. Now that's elegance. Once I got inside the cave, I quickly discovered some bad news. Things had changed. Ah, so annoying. And not for the better. Well, I'm not a very happy photo tripper right now. This cave that you see, I've shot this many times before, and it's almost a guaranteed epic shot if you get some good light. And if you're even luckier and you get good light and the tide coming in, you're gonna get an epic shot. But this is the problem. This tree that's fallen down recently, I'm guessing probably in the December storm that we had, which made a right mess of Vancouver Island. And I didn't bring a chainsaw. In fact, I'm not even sure I'm allowed to bring a chainsaw and just clean the top of this off. But this was gonna be my guaranteed epic shot, especially with what looks to be good light and perfect tidal conditions. But not gonna happen now. In fact, the only thing I can do now before I go and look for a new shot is eat chocolate.
Gavin, what are you going to do now that your shot's wrecked?
Well, I mean, all I can do really is wait for some light, maybe find another shot, but in the meantime just cheer myself up with some chocolate. This is a twirl. These come from England, and even though I live in Canada, I get my chocolate imported at great expense because there's nothing quite like British chocolate. You should totally try one of these.
I really think I should.
So good. I highly recommend it.
I think I would enjoy one.
You would. You'd love it. You should try one day.
I really think I should.
You should. Yeah, that's what you get for being a right cheeky bugger, eh? Now, the twirl definitely helped to lift my spirits enough that I felt inspired to take on the challenge of finding a new composition. This was a harsh reminder, though, that Mother Nature is always tinkering with that landscape, and we can't rely on the belief that it's always gonna be there. So I encourage you to get out there and get your shots, because you never know when it's gonna be too late. Right, against all odds, I think I might have found my shot. So you see this lovely shape, this kind of like a window in the rock, looking through to that nice little bit of light that's going off in the distance. Well, I figured if I get my camera vertical, flip it vertical, and shoot super wide and get very, very close to that to magnify it. This is kind of like a nice foreground object, so I'll have to focus stack it, but this is the beauty of a super wide angle lens, is you can magnify that, make it look huge, and create this gorgeous little window frame. So I'll show you what I've framed up. Okay, so this is what I was thinking about, something like this, but now that I look at it a little bit longer, I'm kind of struggling with the background there. So if I get it up a little bit higher, you get a little bit more water, but then that little piece of peninsula is chipping into the rock on the side. If I get lower, well then, you know, you've got that pyramid shaped rock spiking up into that piece of land. I'd like them separated. I can move back a bit like that, but it's kind of odd. I might have to rethink this and go for something different. Okay, plan C. Right, okay, so I tried that out. I put the camera on the tripod. It didn't quite work out. I studied the composition a little bit more closely and things didn't quite line up. But in the process of getting the tripod in there, I did determine that I'm gonna have to grovel and borrow Cayden's Gorillapod, because I did see a nice horizontal shot. Oh yeah, Gorillapod, that's a brilliant idea. That's what I was gonna do.
I know, that's why I brought it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
They're great.
Love to try that.
I brought mine all the way from home to use it.
Yeah?
You should really try one sometime.
Yeah. Probably should, yeah.
Yeah? Don't forget to bring your stuff next time.
Yeah. I'll get my coat. You knew that KK was gonna lend me that Gorillapod, and this is the shot that I managed to capture. I was able to transform that tiny little 10-inch window into what looks like a huge rock column just by getting super close to it. And these are the hypnotic sandstone patterns that I was talking about, and I just find them to be so mesmerizing. It almost looks like coral, which when you think about it really makes total sense. And I also love the ribbons of colour that you see deep inside the rock. It kind of reminds me of the many colours of rock that you see in places like the Valley of Fire down in Nevada, or even Moab in Utah. Now this is a little time-lapse clip that I created about 7 years ago when I was setting up for this shot. And of course this is that very first cave that I showed you, which is now unshootable because of that fallen tree. And this brings me back to the entire point of this video. This is a shot that I made many years ago at Punchbowl Falls in Oregon, and not only is this place now reported to be completely destroyed, but it's also inaccessible. And if you told me that on the day that I shot this image, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but I might have been inspired to shoot a lot more frames and perhaps worry less about how cold and uncomfortable I was, and worry a little bit more about capturing those magic moments that might never happen ever again. Let me give you another example of Mother Nature doing her thing. This is a shot of Rialto Beach down in Washington State, and it's actually a composite. The Milky Way was added in afterwards, and here is the original version. And the lovely sea stack that you see there with the tree growing out of the top, well, that has now collapsed. Here's another location that is now inaccessible. This is Elawah Falls down in Oregon, and I took this a couple of years before the big fire that happened, and even back then I had to rig up some climbing ropes because the trail had collapsed due to a major landslide. Just down the road from there is Oneonta Gorge, and I created this shot several years ago, and even though it's a fairly dangerous location to reach at certain times of the year, I would never have believed that it would get destroyed and then closed down to the public. I always thought that I had more time to enjoy it. Lastly, this is a shot I took of the Peter Iredale shipwreck in Astoria, aptly named Sands of Time, and while this still stands, it's quite obviously not going to last much longer. So, if you've been thinking of visiting some iconic locations, well, there's no time like the present.
Did you get a good shot?
Well, I got an okay shot. It was fairly good, but it just wasn't quite as good as the comp that I had in mind.
Yeah.
But I'm tuning myself up with a nice bit of twirl all the way from England.
Is it good?
Oh, I highly recommend it. You should definitely try one of these.
I think it would make this photo trip fail slightly less bad for me.
More palatable.
Yeah.
This is very palatable. Yeah. Well, back to the car, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
I've got one for you, really.
Wow. I'm surprised.
But if you got a better shot than me, can I just put that in my video and pretend it was mine?
No.
I'll have that back, thanks.